So my name is Abby Koch. I'm with the Baltimore Office of Sustainability. I'm an environmental planner. We're located in the city's Department of Planning, and we work to improve our ability to sustain ourselves as a city, to make sure that on all different levels we can keep going and have a future for our kids that's as good or better as the one that we have today. I'm going to be talking about a whole bunch of different programs during this talk. I've uploaded a list of those resources and links to all of them at this link here. It'll also be at the end of the presentation, and I'll throw it in the chat as well, so you can follow up on all this stuff. So what is Cities Connecting Children to Nature? There's a national effort started in 2016 by the National League of Cities and the Children and Nature Network to really engage city administrations and governments in trying to get to equitable access to nature for kids and families. So each city came up with its own strategies, and there was a little bit of funding and technical assistance. We were able to get a staff person on board, but a lot of amazing conversations among the different cities. And so that was the genesis of Baltimore Connecting Children to Nature. And it goes well beyond the city government. We do have multiple city agencies involved. Recreation and Parks is a really big piece of it. We've had some really important support from the health department, but also Baltimore City Public Schools is a major partner, the National Aquarium in Baltimore. Indigo, or Inward Discovery Grows Outdoors, has been an awesome thought partner and experiential education partner on the ground. We work with the Black Mental Health Alliance on bringing programs to kids that connect mindfulness and nature. And there's a lot of other amazing folks who've been involved as well. So we put together as a team, as a city, a bunch of strategies for what it means, what equitable access to nature would look like, what would be most impactful for kids here in Baltimore City. And what we said we wanted to do was establish a Baltimore Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights, which we did. We wanted to increase trauma-informed care practices among the environmental community, and we've done some great trainings with the health department for environmental educators, and increase nature-based experiences among the childcare community, which of course is what we're doing here today. So thank you guys so much for being here. We are focused on expanding green schoolyards with city schools, and on uplifting green job opportunities and green career development for Baltimore youth. So that's the initiative in a nutshell. I mentioned the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. It was put together over the course of about a year with support from the Greater Baltimore Wilderness Coalition, Greater Baltimore Children and Nature Network, the Y of Maryland, and other partners, and input from young people. And it was signed by the mayor in 2019. We also put together a curriculum that relates to the Outdoor Bill of Rights. So this is a nature journaling set of 10 exercises around each of these rights, where kids can explore how they're impacted in their lives by these different facets of nature, what is around them, you know, how they relate to it. A little background on some of the resources that we provide for schools. We have a small grant program called the Green Healthy Smart Challenge. We give out little $1,000 to $1,500 grants to city public schools. We've been running that for 11 years now. We skipped a year last year. And we also work to help schools certify as Maryland Green Schools. So those are all the little dots there are schools that have gotten our grants. It's 85% of the school system at this point. And these are for hands-on student-led projects. Things like creating schoolyard vegetable gardens, doing healthy cooking classes, recycling and composting programs, going on environmental field trips and bringing the information back to their school. Just everything you can imagine, as long as the kids come up with it and implement it. And then the Maryland Green School program is sort of the next step of that. And it's this statewide certification open to any K-12 school. And they ask you to show what environmental issues you're teaching, what professional development teachers are getting, what kind of celebrations and partnerships you're doing, but more than anything else, what hands-on activities the kids are doing about the natural world. So there were 9 city public schools that were certified as Maryland Green Schools when we started this work in 2009. And there are 33 today, and you have to recertify every 4 years to stay current. So we're super proud of them. We launched last year when schools were virtual, the Baltimore Outdoor Learning Program, and worked with a smaller cohort of 11 schools to set up outdoor learning spaces on their campuses. And this was in part a response to COVID-19 and with outdoor spaces being so much safer than indoor spaces, but really a fulfillment of that green schoolyard strategy that I mentioned, and this attempt to get kids more access to nature. So some of those projects have happened at this point, some of them are underway, but it's been really exciting work, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. We have a high school internship program that we run every year with 5 city public school high schoolers, and they've worked on a wide variety of projects from legislative advocacy. They're working right now to uplift the campaign for a Maryland Bill of Environmental Human Rights. And this would be an amendment to the Maryland State Charter that would say we all have the right to a clean environment and the state has a duty to protect that right. And the really important thing about that is then it gives everyday people standing to say, hey, my rights are being violated by this pollution emitting facility over here, or by climate change itself, and maybe make some really big changes. They've also done a lot of great things about arts and advocacy and direct service. In 2020, we also launched Nature Nurtures, which was our attempt to fulfill this cross-training strategy of introducing more folks in the environmental movement to trauma and healing concepts, and spreading information and practices about how to take kids outdoors. So we had a symposium the first year and a series of workshops last summer. There are recordings of some of those, one that was with Gabe that got incredibly positive feedback about integrating arts, social emotional learning, and the outdoors. We did a panel with the Healing Youth Alliance that was involved in organizing the summit, where kids talked about, how nature was healing to them and what barriers they experienced, what they wanted adults to know, about their struggles to access the outdoors. And we're going to be running that series again this summer. Save the dates, June 21st through 25th. And again, I'll have more information about that and how you can connect to us about it at the end, because we would love to have you there, and maybe love to have people give presentations if there's something that you think you'd be interested in sharing. We'll be opening that soon. I mentioned our work with the Black Mental Health Alliance. Last year was a very busy year. In 2020, we also launched Club Web, the Wellness and Environmental Book Club, and we're going in to schools via Zoom and reading books by Black and Brown authors about nature, and then doing meditation and mindfulness practices with the kids. So we're restarting that this month and very excited about it. And finally, I mentioned Green Jobs. We put together information about a bunch of programs that are out there for young people to get training, get internships, and start learning about the green careers field, places to find jobs, local college programs to get involved with. And we've worked with YouthWorks and city schools to get green careers speakers into the various speaker series that they have going on for their young people. So we got a little bureau going on at this point. Okay, so our goal, as I said, is equitable access to nature. And right now there is an enormous gap in nature access that kids experience. It is almost, I think actually more than 3 times as likely if you're in a non-white family that you're going to live in a census tract with less nature than the natural average as compared to a white family. And low-income families, the disparity with high-income families is not quite as large, but still very large. And there are compounding inequities, of course, that create further barriers to nature access, such as lack of access to transportation, fears about crime and violence pushing people to stay inside, the environments, being littered or dangerous in various ways that make people feel that it's unwelcoming. And why does all of this matter? Well, there is an enormous wealth of research that shows how important time in nature is for our health and well-being. And this is true for adults as well, but especially true for children. And it's everything from reduced incidence of nearsightedness when kids spend more time outside. Our eyes actually need to focus on things that are further away than a wall a couple of feet from you to be healthy and strong the way they should. Kids who spend more time outside, this will not shock you if you know anything about how this works, are more likely to have healthy levels of vitamin D. And it's extremely common in our society, especially for African Americans, to have lower than optimal vitamin D levels, which can affect your energy levels, your mood, your sleep, all these other things that you wouldn't necessarily think had anything to do with whether or not you were getting enough sunlight. Kids who spend more time outside are more active and have a lower risk of obesity. And there's also a lot of data about improved social and emotional skills, better ability to deal with stress and anger, improved ability to relate to others. There's a lot of things that are pretty straightforward that we understand, like the eyesight and vitamin D stuff. And then there's stuff we're really just beginning to understand, at least on a scientific level. I think we can understand it very well on an intuitive level about how nature impacts our minds and how we really need to be in the spaces that we evolved for. And with kids in particular, there's a lot of exciting evidence that they learn better outdoors as well. That they do better on tests and all sorts of grades, that they have better creativity and critical thinking skills. Even just being able to see a view of nature can have some of this impact. People worry, if I take kids outside and try to do a class with them, they'll be too distracted, they'll be all over the place, it'll never work. But in fact, kids seem to be able to focus better in green environments, at least after that initial hump. There's more engagement and enthusiasm with learning, and more impulse control and less disruptive behavior. And so this is hundreds and hundreds of studies across decades and across countries around the world that all say the same thing. But I wanted to pull out just a few that I found really interesting to hammer the point home. The first one, and it'll just be these three. They took kids with ADHD and gave them a test of concentration. And then they had them take a 20-minute walk, either downtown in an urban environment, in a sort of softer, slightly greener residential area, or in a green park. And then they had them retake the test. All of the kids did better. The kids who did the walk in the park did significantly better than the other kids, to the point that the effect was similar to the effect you would get from ADHD medication. And they enjoyed the walk in the park more than the other two walks. The second study, they took kids and put a little mesh net on their head that tracks electrical activity. And then they gave them simple tasks to do where you have to hold like a shape in your mind, spatial working memory, and tasks related to your ability to keep your attention on something and control your impulses. And they gave them these tests indoors and outdoors. And they found that the kids did better on the spatial working memory task outdoors versus indoors. And they did just as well on the intention and control tasks in the two environments, but they actually had less electrical activity registered coming off their brains when they were doing it outdoors, which is to say that it was easier for them. They had to expend less effort to do the same task when they were in a natural environment versus inside. And finally, and there's a lot of fascinating stuff about stress, cortisol, resilience. This is just one study that I pulled out. They had doctors prescribe low-income kids a weekly dose of time in the park, the sort of Docs in the Park program that you may have heard about. And they found that those kids, from just doing that one time a week, had a significant increase in their reported resilience from stress, their ability to bounce back after experiencing something stressful, and a decrease in their overall levels of stress. One of the studies I almost threw in here was about anxiety over the pandemic, and third graders who spent time, like one lesson a week outside in their school life, having lower anxiety at a time than all of their peers' anxiety was spiking. So I could go on and on about all that, but I just wanted to give you all a taste of why we're doing this and how deeply important it is, how it touches sort of every aspect of our being. So let's get into what opportunities we have here in Baltimore to actually provide that nature access to kids. We are an incredibly green city. And it's possible to, not really be in that a lot of the time and not think about that, but we really, really are. We have thousands of acres of parkland, millions of trees in those parks, on the streets, in tiny little forest patches hidden around everywhere. We've got 30 miles of paved trails that meet ADA standards and 25 miles of natural surface trails. Dozens of urban farms that are producing and selling food at farmers markets and to restaurants and to neighbors, and hundreds of community gardens. Because of the squiggly nature of the harbor, we've got really amazing waterfront access, and not just the sort of hardscape of the inner harbor that everybody's seen at one point or another, but if you get a little further south to what's called the Middle Branch, a really soft green waterfronts with fishing piers and canoeing and kayaking opportunities. There's a ton of partners that I'm going to touch on just a few of, who are doing work to get kids out into nature that you can hook into what they're up to. And then there's public programming every week through the Parks Department that's out in the parks. And so if there's one thing that you take from this that maybe you didn't have it before, let it be this, and that's the Civic Rec Sign Up system. And again, the link to this is going to be in that resource document, but the Recreation and Parks Department the other year rolled this out, and it's where they put all of their programming, so that you can search it by keyword, by location, type of event, age group, when it is, if there's a cost or not. And what I've done in this screenshot is clicked on outdoor activities. And this just gives you a taste of, even now, and this was in February that I took this screenshot, all the things that are happening out there in terms of hikes, bikes. Again, there is canoeing and kayaking happening right now, although you can't see it on here. Various tours and celebrations, volunteer opportunities, scouting programs, Mother Nature story time at Kerry Nature Center. So there's just a ton going on, and this is where you would find out about and register for all of those programs. I mentioned the Kerry Nature Center. Has anybody been there before? Raise your hand. Angela and Gabe, awesome. Kerry Murray is our one nature center in Baltimore City. It's located in West Baltimore and Gwynns Falls, Lincoln Park, very hidden away, very easy to not know it's there. You got to sort of go through this pathway back into the woods to get to it. But it's so flippin' cool. They rehabilitate wild animals. So they've got ravens and owls and hawks that you can meet, and if you go at the right time, and again, you can find out on Civic Rec when this is, you can watch them get fed or get a bath. They do animal ambassador stuff where they bring the animals into the school. All kids in Baltimore City can come free for field trips there, and they do programming throughout the week. And over the summer, they actually have a nature preschool that they do. So they're a really big partner of ours, and we're huge fans. I'm going to highlight just a couple of other really exceptional parks facilities that we have in Baltimore City. Anybody been to Silburn Arboretum? All right, yeah. So this is in Northwest Baltimore, and again, it's our one arboretum in the city, a place all about showing off the trees. They've got a beautiful new visitor center, big greenhouses where they grow all of the plants that get planted in front of public buildings in the city. Beautiful trails that meander through the woods in the back, and sort of formal planted gardens. And they hold a lot of weddings and special events there. It's an absolutely gorgeous space. And the Conservatory. Anybody been to the Conservatory? All right. So this is in Druid Hill Park. And it is our one conservatory, and you can wander through some really unique ecosystems here, different landscapes, deserts, tundra, tropical rainforest. They've got an orchid and palm room. It is free to visit. There is a small donation requested, but here at Silburn and at Kerry Murray, they have expert naturalists who can answer your questions and who run programming throughout the week. I also wanted to highlight, this is not a recreation and parks facility, but it is an amazing facility here in Baltimore, the Masonville Cove Environmental Education Center. And they're located in South Baltimore on a site that used to be owned by the Maryland Port Authority, that they poured a lot of work into turning into this natural resource where actually now you can't walk on all of the grounds because they have eagles nesting there, and they got to protect those guys. But they do regular programming throughout the month. The National Aquarium and Living Classrooms runs that site, and they work really closely, especially with schools in South Baltimore, but they do programming for everybody as well. So now I'm going to talk about a couple of examples of activities in nature, and I got this from the Chesapeake Mental Health Collaborative's Center for Nature Informed Therapy. So these guys are based in Towson, and they train therapists on using nature as a tool to work with their clients for healing. So I asked them, were there any particular resources, studies, activities, that they would want to uplift? And they shared with me this eco-autobiography tool. So I thought we could take a moment, because I've just been talking and do something together. So I'm not going to ask you to answer all these questions, but I am going to ask that we all close our eyes, take a deep breath, let it out. Do that a couple more times, a couple of breaths in and out. Clear your mind a little bit. And now think about a natural space from your childhood, someplace that you enjoyed when you were a kid, that was special to you, that you got to explore, feel safe in. And picture that place clearly in your mind, like you're back there, like you're that kid again. And think about, what did you most enjoy doing there? How did it make you feel? Cool. Thank you for doing that with me. If you want to share what your place is, I'll give everybody a moment. I would be real curious to hear.
So I used to deliver newspapers as a kid, which isn't really a thing anymore for kids. But there was always a creek along the way, and I would spend like a half an hour at that creek, just kind of exploring the rocks. You saw the occasional animal and just splashing around, and that was my place I enjoyed when I was a kid.
Beautiful, thank you. All right, well, I'm going to keep going. But yeah, that was their suggestion, to start your journey in connecting more deeply with nature, to just thinking about what natural experiences were most impactful to you and why, and to go from there. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Winds Falls Field Day that we held with the Aquarium and Kerry Nature Center in 2019. As another example of a way to take kids outdoors. There's no, lack of ways, but this was one really special experience where we brought 6 schools from South Baltimore out to Winds Falls Park. We had all the adult leaders come together beforehand and do a pre-field trip to walk the trails and test out these activity bags that the aquarium had put together, with different activities for the kids to do. And they were very, very simple things, like envelopes of paint swatches in a natural color palette, where the kids would then go out and find things that matched those colors. Magnifying glasses, as you can see there, trowels, for digging around, little tactile things, notepads. And then we took the kids out, oriented them to where they were, got in our groups, went through the things in the bag. They also had snacks and bug spray and sunblock. And from there, it was really kid directed, where we did a few simple activities, taught the kids to make flower crowns, but they got to choose, did they want to clamber over the logs and explore? Did they want to run around? Did they want to, engage with the stuff in their little backpacks? And it was a beautiful day. And I think letting kids choose their own pace in an environment like that is a really great way to do it. So I wanted to talk about an interdisciplinary example of a way to connect kids to the natural world, and that's caring for monarch butterflies. So you can order these guys online and very, very cheaply get the place for them to live in, a little mesh container, and actually get to see them hatch, which is a really beautiful and unique experience. So that's one thing, sort of the experience of learning about their life cycle and actually raising the butterflies. And then you can plant milkweed, which is the plant that they need to survive and is an important pollinator species. So you can get some hands-on gardening stuff going on and know that you're creating a way station to help this particular animal survive. They're incredibly beautiful, so it's a great opportunity to make art and mosaics about them. And they fly down to Mexico, and there are some really cool projects out there where people do these pen pal experiences of like, oh, hey, you know, the monarchs are here now, we're releasing them. Oh, hey, they got to us, the monarchs are here now. And do some language learning back and forth, and also use as an opportunity to talk about migration related to human migration. So if you're thinking from an academic context, you can see how, you know, we've got biology, art, language, social studies, all wrapped up in one little critter. So I just thought that was a really cool example. And now I wanted to share a little bit from one of our partners. Amber Doherty from the National Aquarium had wanted to participate in the session today with me, and unfortunately had to back out, but she had a story that she really wanted to share. That's her in the middle of the picture there with the purple hair, and she's a really important coalition member on our Connecting Children to Nature team. And she wrote just like a little 2-minute story that I'm going to read to you all when I asked her, you know, about any reflections that she had about things that she learned working to connect kids to nature. The aquarium works within the Jonestown neighborhood, since that's where our Animal Care and Rescue Center opened in 2018. Some of the first interactions with residents indicated that their community garden wasn't being used by community members much. The aquarium was asked to take over programming within the community garden and make it a place where neighbors wanted to be and socialize. We've had success in engaging some adults in volunteering and garden maintenance, but the local youth were standoffish. Part of working within the community means delivering workshops to the local after-school groups. One of them, the Baltimore Wisdom Project, had taken over programming of the McKim Center. In their process of getting to know residents, the Baltimore Wisdom Project had conversations with the students and their guardians around an assortment of topics, including the environment. From these conversations, the Baltimore Wisdom Project had identified a multi-generational removal from the land as one trauma. This is trauma from generations of being terrorized out of wooded areas, gate-kept or redlined out of well-shaded neighborhoods, and associating the outside with filth and uncleanliness. These preconceptions have local students disinterested in gardening. Seems messy and pointless. Gardening is seen as something one pays or is paid to do. The manual labor involved in gardening just doesn't appeal to everyone. What the aquarium has worked on with the Baltimore Wisdom Project is to bring the outside in a bit at a time. We've made terrariums, planted seeds, and held workshops outside, each time ensuring we allow students to either be in their comfort zone or try stretching it a bit. When workshops are held in the garden, there are always garden chores available for them to participate in if desired. This baby stepping youth into nature was something I struggled with at first. I grew up in a family that gardened and went on outdoor adventures whenever the opportunity presented itself. It was hard for me to wrap my head around not jumping at the chance to get your hands dirty. The slow and steady approach has been working though. Last year, we had our first student earned service hours through garden volunteering, and I was just asked today by an 8-year-old girl when the garden was going to open up again. The youth are beginning to see the importance of growing things, especially food, and that gives me hope. So big thanks to Amber for sharing that story. All right, we got 9 more minutes, so I'm gonna run through now some specific program examples that are out there related to the rights in the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights, the first of which is to breathe fresh air. And I want to encourage you all to think about trying yourself or with kids an outdoor yoga class. So on the left here, we have an example from Federal Hill Prep of taking their kindergarten class outside, because all ages of kids can do yoga. And they use that to connect to the lesson they were doing about the 5 senses. And you can begin to get why kids might learn better outside when you think about how tactile that is, how it has specific memories associated with it. There is a program called Yoga by Indy that runs a yoga by the lake at Montebello Lake. They are going to be starting back up again in April, runs every Saturday. It's free for kids, $10 for adults, but every month they do a $5 deal. So that's one way that you could get out and do some breathing of fresh air in the outdoors. Explore safe and inviting forests and wild spaces. There's an organization called Natureworks located in our region that is focused on being outdoor guides. And every month on Meetup, they have a free, what they call a saunter. And they include meditation, mindfulness, play, art, and some information and context about where they're at when they do these. Their next is coming up in April, and it's going to be at Masonville Cove Environmental Education Center. So this is a great way to meet some really good people and get to know that space. Grow a garden and eat fresh fruits and vegetables. So this is something you can do anywhere, whatever kind of space you have. You can grow herbs on your windowsill. But I really want to encourage you to check out our local farms and community gardens, as I mentioned earlier. And again, in that resource list, you'll find lists of where you can find those folks. On the left there, we have Bliss Meadows Urban Farm in Northeast Baltimore. They're run by a really amazing group called Backyard Base Camp that exists to reconnect people of color to the land. So they do cool workshops there. They've been involved in our Connecting Children to Nature coalition in the past. And on the right there, you have Reservoir Hill and the Whitelock Community Farm. And they also run programming, yoga, films, cooking classes with their local elementary school. And there's, wherever you're at, you're going to find these people. And they're the ones that have the really deep knowledge and can be those mentors for kids about food. Splash in clean streams, ponds, rivers, and the bay. This is a tough one because we know that our streams, rivers, and bay are not clean the way we want them to be. But kids can get in the water and help to make it cleaner by doing the first step of learning how we're doing right now and engaging in some community science. So every month, Masonville Cove has a water quality testing event. I think they're on Monday afternoons. So you can learn a little bit of science and help aid the efforts to improve our water quality. Play in vibrant neighborhoods, schoolyards, and parks. I want to encourage everybody to think about this outdoor learning thing. The city school system has put together an amazing website all about outdoor learning, full of resources, curricula guides, logistics, partners to work with. And you can see here 2 examples, one of like a very, very simple space with just some stumps that you can get at low cost from the City Rec and Parks Department Wood Waste Yard, Camp Small. And on the right, a space that's been built out over a number of years. The former is at Federal Hill Prep in South Baltimore. The latter is at Hamilton Elementary in Northeast Baltimore. And just little grants year after year, donors choose our grants. They built out this space and actually another space for younger kids on their same campus. And they use it every day and get a ton out of it. They also keep chickens and do some composting and vegetable gardening and other cool things at that site. Understand and feel connected to the city's unique ecosystem. There's a lot of ways to do this, but we have our very own Audubon Center in Baltimore City, located in Patterson Park, and they do bird watching tours, 2 a month, all free, 1 in Druid Hill Park, 1 in Patterson Park. So why not learn from the experts and have them show you around some of the species we got going on. Develop confidence in outdoor skills and recreation. I mentioned canoeing and kayaking with recreation and parks. There's this rowing and resource center on the Middle Branch that they run. They've got a shipping container full of canoes and kayaks, and they actually also run a program at a local pool indoors where they can teach you, in a very controlled environment, how to use these things. But if you're a little fearless, you don't have to have practiced before. It's not very hard. You can just get up right out on the water. And on Saturdays, they run something called Canoe and Scoop, which is free, where you get trash pickers and some bags and pick trash off the shoreline. It doesn't sound very glamorous, but it's actually still incredibly beautiful and a great way to spend the morning. Work with neighborhood mentors in nature. I wanted to highlight a grant opportunity that's just about to open called the Say Yes or Youth Environmental Stewards program. This is run by the Environmental Control Board, which are the folks in city government who you go to if you're trying to dispute like a a charge for high grass and weeds. So it's really cool that they, of all people, have started this Be More Beautiful program about vacant lot revitalization, and community organizations can get funding to work with up to five kids each on beautification projects in their neighborhoods, on creating new gardens. And finally, have space for agency and action. Healing-centered engagement is not just about knowing about trauma, it's about doing something about it, coming together as a community and making a change in your conditions. And thinking a lot about nature can be a little depressing in a way when you think about all the environmental challenges that we're facing, unless you're doing something about it. And we've worked with kids, as I said, in our high school internship program, but also with younger kids as well, to get out there and make their voices heard about the issues. And they universally have found it really important, really useful. There's no better way to learn than to put yourself in the position of needing to be a teacher. So these kids, learn about the issues and then teach others about it. And have done a really good job pushing adults to make change. And on the right there, you have folks from the South Baltimore Community Land Trust and the Energy Justice Network downtown. The other picture is from a rally that we helped organize in Annapolis. Finally, I wanted to, in case you hadn't seen it yet, let you all know about two events that are happening as part of the summit. On Friday, there will be a nature immersive experience at Silburn Arboretum run by a really cool guy named Ted from Recreation and Parks. This is a practice that he does called forest bathing that he's been trained in, where you really open your senses and connect to the forest around you. People rave about it. I'm going, I'm really excited. And then in the afternoon, Kerry Marine Nature Center is going to do a guided, gentle family walk, starting at the center and going out into the woods. So check those out. All right, that's what I got. Again, I'm going to take a second and put that resource list in the chat for you all. Sorry, I'm right up on our time, but are there any questions or thoughts that people have and wanted to share?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank everybody because, again, I'm not someone that frequents green spaces or that's very knowledgeable in that. I do want that to change though. So I just thank you all for like all of the resources and all of the encouragement that you guys gave me today. So I feel that I'm leaving this session a lot more knowledgeable, and I have like some great resources that I can share and some good feedback that I can give to my director. So
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you very much. All right, well, we are at 3. So again, thank you guys. It doesn't work if people don't come out. I really appreciate you all. That's my information. Please do feel free to get in touch. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the week and the rest of the summit.
Give me one second. I'm trying to copy this.
Oh, sure.
A resource link. Okay, I was able to.
Yep, I don't have anywhere I have to be this second, so I'm just gonna hang out until they kick me out, I guess.
Oh yeah, I have it now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Take care.
And it's just us.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Did they come in at the beginning and like when you came in, they said it was automatically recording? Oh, it's still recording.
We are still being recorded, so watch what you say.
Yeah. I just think that like similar to what we did with the Nature Nurtures workshop, like we went through and kind of cut down the fluff and then put it out on YouTube. And so now it's just like always there. So, you know, if I think in addition to the resources list that you shared, we could upload this recording and then people could always come and get the rundown from you. So you don't always have to do this live. And since you crushed it and dropped the mic, you know, you shared everything very in a lot of detail and succinctly and clearly, you know, and then it's all there. So people could just get it whenever they want.
Oh, thanks, man. I assume that they're recording it for a reason, and maybe they'll be sharing it with us afterwards. So yeah, we'll see about doing that.
For sure. Well, appreciate you as always. Glad I came to represent with you.
Me too, man. Have a good one.
I'll see you Saturday at the.
Yes.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
Take care, Abby. See ya.